Hi, welcome to SimplyNAS Media. Today we're going to talk about the QNAP TS-EC1280U-RP. This is a 2U 12-bay rack-mountable NAS, can be installed on any racks with the additional QNAP rail kits that are provided as an add-on. The QNAP TS-EC1280U-RP is equipped with an Intel quad-core Xeon processor at 3.4 GHz. The processor has the capability of hyper-threading to 3.8 GHz for data-intensive tasks. Data-intensive tasks, of course, include AutoCAD programs, major backups, etc. From that state, the unit comes equipped with 4 GB of RAM. That's the stock configuration. This can also be added and expanded up to 32 GB, 4 times 8 GB of slots. Basically, the RAM is error-correctable RAM also, which is an advantage. If something goes wrong with the RAM, it has the ability to correct itself, sans any, of course, memory failure. That being said, the NAS as well comes equipped with 4 RJ45s at the back. This can be used to either have 4 IP addresses directly to the NAS and have 4 different connections to the NAS. It can be used to have 2 bonds per slot, so you can have 2 GB uplink and another 2 GB uplink, or of course you can bundle all 4 ports together and have a 4 GB uplink. This will essentially give you a better data transfer rate, and it will also allow you to connect to the NAS faster and have a faster access time for viewing your files. The NAS also comes with 4 USB 3.0 slots. These can be used to back up external hard drives too, or back up the NAS to an external hard drive. The USB slots are not USB hosts, so they do not go any further. You cannot add additional storage to the RAID array via the USB slots. The NAS comes equipped with an HDMI slot. This can be used for a console. This will allow you to connect a monitor to the NAS. With the USB 2.0 slots that are included at the back, which is 4 of those also, you can of course attach a keyboard and a mouse. This will allow you to effectively manage the NAS without needing to be on a network. Let's say if you've got downtime, you can still manage the NAS, or you can of course have the NAS on a network and manage it at the same time if you'd like the console up in your data center. The NAS also comes equipped with 2 expansion slots. This will allow you to install either 10 GB cards, additional LAN cards for 1 GB, or you can of course install the SAS card for the expansion unit. The expansion unit will allow you to add up to 8 expansion units to this NAS. There will be daisy chained via initially 1 expansion unit going to the NAS, and then all the other expansion units will be daisy chained to each other. This allows you effectively to have 140 bays on this NAS. With the new 8TB drives that are now available, this will allow you to have 1120 terabytes of data on one NAS. Of course, this allows you to either archive data, allows you to have major backups. It also means when you run out of space on this NAS, you don't have to go and buy a new NAS. You can simply just add an expansion unit to it and carry on. Okay, now we're going to open up the NAS and let you look inside and take a look at the inside of the QNAP. Okay, taking a look inside the QNAP TS-EC1280U, we have initially 4 RAM slots here that we spoke about. These RAM slots come equipped with 1 4 GB slot. After that, if you want to go higher than 28 GB of RAM, you'll have to remove the 4 GB slot and install 4 8 GB RAM sticks. Again, error correctable RAM. Over here you have your 4 internal RJ45s. These also have the USB ports built into them. Those are soldered onto the motherboard. Your HDMI slot is there. These are your 2 expansion slots. With the expansion slots you can do numerous things. You can install a 10 GB card. You can install 2 10 GB cards. You can install a 10 GB card and a LAN 1 GB card. You can install 2 LAN 1 GB cards. One of these slots we recommend you don't install 2. You reserve one of these if you plan on expanding the NAS in the future, because one of your SAS cards will go into here. The SAS card is imperative for the expansion unit. This will allow you to of course connect an expansion unit to the NAS, and after that expand further as well. Once again, you can add up to 8 expansion units totally. The initial one will go to the NAS, the rest of the expansion units daisy chained to each other. This slot here is new. They've been including these recently now. These are BBU slots, battery backup unit. This will allow you to have a small battery backup in the NAS in the event of a power failure, rather than your NAS crashing and shutting off on you if you don't have a UPS, but of course we'll always recommend you install a UPS to the NAS. This will allow you to shut down the NAS safely without it crashing on you, but it won't sustain enough power for you to run the NAS. The slots over here are your 2 slots for your mSATA internal cache. So these basically, rather than taking up a bay with SSDs, you can now install two 128 GB for a total of 256 gig of internal SSD cache. This boosts performance on back-end applications, such as virtualization, such as running Zen server, running the Veeam backups. This will allow you to have better I/O connection to the NAS and better access time to the NAS. Of course, essentially, we say SSD cache is better RAM. So on top of the 32 gig of ECC RAM that you can also have 256 gig of SSD cache. This is where you'll get around the 390,000 IOPS on a 10 gig network. There's also a 512 meg dome. This is where your OS is installed. It doesn't go on your hard drive, it doesn't use your hard drive. The OS is installed on here, all firmware upgrades go directly to the dome. It's just 512 meg, you don't need any more than that. The OS will never probably get bigger than that. That was taking a look at the inside of the NAS and all the relevant features that we need to take a look at. Of course, the most important to you are going to be the RAM slots, the expansion units, and the 2 SSD cache slots. Factory backup can be used, but we always recommend you rather use a UPS instead. Okay, now we've taken a look inside the QNAP. We're going to talk about your hard drive configuration and how you can configure your EC1280U-RP. There's of course various ways you can configure this NAS. On top of the internal mSATA cache that's already on board, you can add up to 4 other SSDs in your actual base slots. Now this is again for internal cache as opposed to storage. This will allow you to boost performance even further than the 32 gig of RAM and the 2 internal mSATA caches. SSDs can vary in size, of course. You have to have 32 gig of RAM to actually see the benefit of the SSD cache. Once you've got the 32 gig installed, you can have up to, I believe it's 840 gig of SSD per SSD. This will, of course, boost performance once again for back-end applications, not for front-end applications. So again, virtualization benefits, benefits when you're doing major backups using Veeam, Zen server. This also boosts performance when you're using this as a local IP SAN using iSCSI. These NASs are, of course, whilst they're network attached storage, they can be used as IP SANs. IP SANs allows you to connect up to a Windows server and use this as local storage to your Windows server. Of course, it gets expensive to add storage to a Windows server, so this would be your backup option for storage for your virtual machines. Aside from adding SSDs as SSD cache, you can of course populate all 12 bays for SSDs within your RAID group as storage. There are major benefits of SSDs over hard drives. The obvious one of course being that the SSDs don't have spinning materials inside. There's no spinning disks, there's no magnetic disks, and as such there's a lower failure rate for SSDs. The other advantage is of course the heat dissipation. SSDs rarely have heat dissipation. This allows your NAS to stay cooler. The cooler your NAS, the better the performance. That's always going to be the case. Whilst of course the NAS is equipped with its own cooling methods with plenty of fans, and of course your data center will most likely have cooling methods and the temperatures controlled, SSDs will further help you dissipate any type of heat that comes into the NAS. Hard drives can get extremely hot depending on the type of data you're transferring, and as such SSDs will be more reliable. SSDs also have a reliability score that is higher than any type of hard drive. They don't have moving parts inside. Those are the benefits of SSD. SSD market is now evolving to a point where you can get 1 terabyte SSDs. So it's no longer the case of I don't get any storage space with SSD. You can get up to 12 terabytes of raw space on this NAS with a 1 terabyte SSD. Of course, you've got expansion units. By no means do you have to install SSDs on your expansion units either. You can have your head unit as SSDs and install hard drives on your expansion units to further enhance the storage. The NAS has the capability of creating different RAID groups and different volumes. This will allow you to have one volume purely for SSD where you can initially throw all your data onto the NAS very quickly, and then you can move that data along while it's already on the NAS onto your other RAID groups which have your hard drives. That way you keep your SSDs free and available for data intensive tasks. That concludes our talk for the QNAP TS-EC1280U-RP. We hope you've enjoyed this, we hope you've learned a lot. Of course, if you have any other questions, you may always contact us at SimplyNAS at 407-960-4690. You can also email us at sales@simplynas.com. We'd be happy to help you picking out a configuration and figuring out which way your NAS will work best for you. Thank you.